Welcome to Company Showcase, an advertising feature on HowStreet.com.
We're chatting with American Manganese CEO and President Larry Reaugh. Larry, there's an update to the information you gave us the last time you were here on Showcase. What has happened since September 17th?
Well, I'm glad that you've asked that question, Jim. Yes, there is. There's a couple things that have changed. We've come out with some news, but I'd like to just, first off, just discuss this market right now, because we did touch on it briefly on the last interview, and that was how these shorters make their money and drive these companies down. And we've seen a lot of that in the last week or so. It's not just with American Manganese, but with other companies. This is a perfect climate for them to really get in there and bash these companies and make money doing so. And because you've got a general market that's down, and there's a lot of skepticism and a lot of nervousness in the market, so this is how they thrive. That said and done, we've had some good news. Certainly everything that we've done, and the latest press release is, which was October the 4th, we talked about the proof of concept work nearing completion, and the only thing we have to finish off is the actual building of the batteries, and there should be that should be taking place in the next week or two, or maybe 2 or 3 weeks. It's hard to get the timing on that, and that'll be the proof of concept behind us, and we've approved a second lithium cobalt recycling research program, and that has been approved, and that's expected to start by the mid-month, and which is October the 15th. So we are certainly very happy with what we've got. We've got a lot of interest outside of the market from various groups, and that really are very interested in what we're doing. And I couldn't be happier, Jim.
And anything else, Larry?
Well, the putting out the good news on a bad market is always brings in buying, and it also brings in the shorters, because they need that buying to short to, and that's always an unfortunate part of the business. But when you have a good product and you just stay your way, there shouldn't be any panic out there, and we will, eventually this recycling thing will come to fruition.
Is it good news for lithium that the government of Canada plans to drastically hike carbon taxes over the next few years? So I think they're trying to push people into electrics.
Well, that'll certainly happen. If they go through with this, it's going to be a real burden on the taxpayers, but it will also give them guys that have been on the fence will say, well, I'm going to electric, right? I'm not going to be paying this carbon tax, and that, will certainly boost the business. And that's in Canada, that's not as significant as, say, if it was the U.S. or China that was doing it, but it's a good start, and if Canada is doing it, you can bet that every other country will be looking at it.
Larry, thanks a lot for updating your file.
Well, thank you.
And for those of you who didn't get a chance to hear the original interview I did with Larry back on September 17th, here is the original Showcase interview. Larry, what can you tell us about your company, American Manganese?
Well, I can tell you our company is now focused on quite a different set of parameters than we were here a year ago. And those parameters are on the recycling of lithium-ion batteries. And, Jim, I have to say that we were fortunate that the company was able to look within itself for organic growth, and what we found, or what Chemetco found for us, was that our process that we developed to liberate manganese from low-grade ore deposits in the United States was suitable, and this is a patented process, by the way, was suitable for recycling and upcycling of lithium-ion batteries. And the more we studied it, Chemetco was very convinced that we should be able to successfully do this. So we said, okay, what do we need next? And we needed a proof of concept. So we started that a few months ago, and Chemetco came out with the first phase of the process, which was to leach the cathode material, which happened to be lithium and cobalt, and they extracted 100% of that material. Now, it was in solution, so our next phase was to precipitate it. And we just announced today that was a successful effort. We got out of the first cycle, we got out 60% of the lithium and 91% of the cobalt. And I'd like to just kind of interrupt the flow here by saying that when you're looking at the economics of a recycling program, you wonder where the money is. Certainly the money's in the lithium cobalt, but it leans more heavily to cobalt because a lithium-ion battery contains 60% cobalt and 4% lithium. And so you can see where I'm going with that. The battery has much more cobalt in it, which trades at about $12 a pound, and currently lithium's trading at $8 a pound. So that's looking at the economics of the situation. But we don't want to take our focus strictly on economics. We also want to have this as an environmentally friendly process. We want it to have as a circular economy where you wouldn't have to open new mines in the years to come to supply cobalt and lithium to the battery industry. And it has no waste products, so the recycling plant could be set up in for example, an industrial park in the Lower Mainland here, or in Los Angeles, New York, or wherever or Shanghai, wherever you had a inflow of lithium-ion batteries there. The batteries are starting to reach the end of life. There was 282,000 batteries that reached their end of life last year. That number will grow to over 500,000 by 2020. And then I don't know what the numbers will be after that, but it'll eventually be in the millions of batteries a year. And so you want to have a efficient and a environmentally friendly green process in order to recycle those items. So we think that we're on the right track. And to give you an example, the press release that we put out on August the 4th got the market excited about what we were doing, and we traded up until yesterday around 110 million shares in just over a month, and then today we traded about 10 million shares. Unfortunately, we still have that problem of shorting going on, and it was pretty obvious to anybody watching the market that we were getting heavily shorted. And that's a combination of, actually not just a combination, it's the fact that the market's dipped quite dramatically today, and they took down a lot of stocks, and this is when the short players, the predators, come out and they pounce on a stock, and they can take good news and turn it into bad news in a heck of a hurry. And that's probably what happened today, and that's strictly speculation on my part. I've been studying this issue for a long time, and I've seen it repeat itself over and over and over again, not necessarily in Amy, but on a lot of other stocks that I follow out there. So that's one of the things that we're up against, but we think that we have a product that will overcome. And that product is, what we're working on at this current time. Now, Jim, when I was back, I broke this conversation off at where we announced the precipitation tests today. And I'd like to point out that that was a first-pass precipitation test, so we got 60% of the lithium, 91% of the cobalt. But if we lock cycle it, which means we cycle it, a few more times, we can get much higher recoveries, and that'll be work that's going to be ongoing. And so we'll have an update to this at some time in the future. I can't exactly guess because there's a lot of assay and outside work that has to be done by the research lab in order to get those results. But I'd hope in a few weeks that we could update everybody on the precipitation tests, and then we're definitely going to move ahead on our. We've got enough powder to to start our testing for rechargeable lithium-ion batteries, and we should be able to start working on that in the next few days, and hopefully we'll have some news in a few weeks coming on that. So company is, it's progressing, and we are happy to say that we haven't hit anything that's a major roadblock, and that we're striding ahead. We don't know of anybody else that's doing this because it is not a transparent business. So, the company is trying with all due diligence to get this out as quickly as possible so we can move on to the next stage. And that next stage, of course, would be looking at at pilot plant testing and commercializing the process. And by commercializing, I mean we'd have a much larger pilot plant test than we did with our initial manganese testing back in 2010 and 2011. And that would entail a larger plant because we want to produce a ton or two of material in order to basically to make the powder available to battery manufacturers. And so that is going to be another step, and that'll probably start sometime early next year. Now, lithium-ion batteries are in the news. Lithium's in the news. Cobalt is starting to be in the news. We know there's shortages coming in both of those products, and we hope to be able to supply some of the answers for those shortages. And this doesn't just stop at lithium cobalt. We'll also be, sometime in the near future, we'll be looking at other combinations like nickel, manganese, cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, cobalt batteries, and we'll be looking at separating those cathode materials out and producing a powder that could be used back in that type of a chemistry. So we really have a tiger by the tail here, and just to keep up with everything is, it's a fun project. Now, I know I've been kind of on a ramble here, but I'm trying to fill in the gaps as much as I can, and let you know that management and Chemetco Research are pushing ahead diligently to make all this happen. We're starting to get some outside interest. We probably will be looking at some government grants that could be significant in the pilot plant stage. And we actually believe that we will be funded partially through grants and partially through equity or partnerships or something like that, because it really opens up the door. And that door is, what do you do going forward? I think at a certain point, after all of the proof of concept is completed, that we will end up with a partner. That's speculation at this point, but being in the business for a long time, if you've got something that everybody likes, and it generally results in having a partnership somewhere along the line, or licensing agreements, or sales of royalties, or anything like that that will help fund the company besides equity. But equity is always one way to go, especially if you got grants to supplement that. And so we're encouraged that everything's falling into place the way we envisioned it, and we would hope that at the end of the day that we're successful. Now, another aspect to look at is, cobalt is in danger of being in demand with little supply, and that could happen as early as the end of this year, according to all the other pundits out there. But, I can't see any argument against that. And in reality, the cobalt market could explode. And, rising prices don't mean rising supply. Not immediately. That could take years. And it's certainly not going to come from a byproduct producer who and byproducts, by the way, produce about 96% of all the cobalt. Primary is only about 4 or 5%. I think those numbers are correct, but I'm probably within a few points. And so it's got to come from somewhere. So, I could envision the company being a primary cobalt producer somewhere down the road. This might be a few years from now, but certainly would be somewhere down the road. And I think that we've got everything that we need to move this ahead. So we're looking at being a primary producer of cobalt, being definitely one of the producers of lithium, and perhaps in a smaller way nickel and manganese. And the vista's wide open. We could be testing for aluminum, vanadium, depending on the chemistries. And but we're not, we don't have any intelligence on that, so that's just a speculative glance into the future. So when you look at it, you say, okay, here's a company that's a mining company, and right now they've got a product that the commodity price is way down on. I think the last time I looked at the price, it was around 80 cents a pound for EMM, maybe similar prices for EMD, and that's not conducive to ever go into production with our low-grade deposits in Arizona. We need better prices, and we need better times for that. So the company is, reached into its arsenal, and we're very fortunate in Chemetco recognizing the other application here, which is the upcycling and recycling of batteries. So we're not getting out of the mining business. We're just saying, okay, there's no money for it. Nobody wants to put money into it, so we'll hold on to some of the resources that we have in Arizona. We've dropped most of those, but nobody really can treat the low-grade ores unless they have our process. And so we got enough down there that would, be enough to start an operation, but which is reasonable to handle the costs of maintaining every year. And so we'll hang on to the manganese, and we'll also hang on to our higher grade gold and copper and silver project up in the Rocheux-de-Bois area out of New Hazelton. So we're hanging on to our mining assets. That does bring up the question of, well, maybe we should separate the two, and that's something that we're looking at. And but we have to, before we make the separation, let's be totally 100% sure on our recycling, upcycling, and then we can look at what we're going to do to spin out maybe two companies out of this. And but other than today, which was a bad day in the market for everybody, I think the way to look at this project is that it does have legs, and we will advance in the future. But I'm confident that we're doing the right thing, and I think the shareholders like it.
Larry, is there a website people can go to get more information?
Yes, our website is AmericanManganeseInc.com, and I can be reached at 778-574-4444, and my email address is lreaugh, R-E-A-U-G-H, at AMY, MotherNorman.com.
Push people into electrics.
Well, that'll certainly happen. If they go through with this, it's going to be a real burden on the taxpayers, but it will also give them the guys that have been on the fence will say, well, I'm going to electric, right? I'm not going to be paying this carbon tax. And that will certainly boost the business. And that's in Canada, that's not as significant as, say, if it was the U.S. or China that was doing it. But it's a good start, and if Canada is doing it, you can bet that every other country will be looking at it.
We've been speaking with Larry Reaugh, CEO and President of American Manganese. This has been a HowStreet.com Radio Company Showcase. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on Company Showcase are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at HowStreet.com. Company Showcase is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.